Welcome back to another episode of the Organize My Thoughts podcast. I hope you all are having an amazing week. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about why you struggle with consistency. And it's probably not why you think it is. So I'm doing this episode because recently, especially in the new year, we're all excited about new year, new goals, new me, and we're all trying to build better habits and things like that. Now, this is something that I've been really stretching myself to do, is to build a routine that is both structured and flexible. And I talked about that in a couple episodes from last year. And so I've been taking that into consideration in every single thing that I do. So I now have a very structured and clear routine that allows me to maximize my productivity, be concentrated, and get a lot more done in less time. But back to what I was saying, when it comes to establishing these routines and these healthy habits, sometimes you can get to this point where you are on autopilot, and that's the place where I had gotten. Now, autopilot seems like a good thing because, now I had an established routine. I was able to get all these things done, but I found myself growing very bored in my routines. They had become so automatic to me. It felt like I was doing the same thing every day. I don't know if anybody used to watch SpongeBob, but there was an episode where Squidward got tired of living where he was. And so he was doing the same thing every single day. So he moved to a new town and everybody was doing the same thing. They biked together. They drink their coffee at the same time. They worked out together. Everything was like the same day. And I remember they would just, clip all the episodes together and it would literally be him doing the same thing. Similar to if you watch like YouTube vloggers, they do the same thing every single week. Pretty much everybody has the same morning and nighttime routine now, and it can become very redundant. And so that's the place where I was in, where it wasn't that I was not getting things accomplished. I was actually getting a lot accomplished, but I had become so bored that I felt compelled. I felt like I needed a new strategy or a new routine or new habits to switch things up, because I was getting to this point where I felt like something was wrong with me because I was doing the same thing every single day. And I feel like a lot of people reach this area where they become on autopilot and they get so tired of doing the things that are actually working. And because they're bored, they feel like they need to switch their routine. And so this plays into consistency and why we struggle with consistency. And it's not because we don't know how to get things done or it's too hard. In reality, we just give up on the things that are working too quickly because we don't give the fruit time to actually mature. Again, the reason why we struggle with consistency is not because we don't know how to get the things done or it's too hard or we run into roadblocks. It's simply because the strategies that we have put in place to actually be consistent, we just don't stick with them long enough. And that typically happens because we just get bored. And sometimes we don't necessarily identify it as boredom. We automatically say, you know what, there must be something wrong. There must be something I'm not doing. I don't feel that excitement. I don't feel that zeal. When you start a new project, you get so excited, you get amped up. You're like, I can't wait to accomplish this thing. And so you start working on it. And after a while, the excitement wears off. And now you're feeling like you need to switch to something else because you're no longer motivated to do that thing. But in reality, you need to persevere through that place of boredom and block out distractions. That place of boredom is not the time for you to give up and abandon the task. It's the time to press in and get super focused. I've been reading this amazing book. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and it's all about building healthy habits and breaking bad ones. And in one chapter, he talked about his career in baseball and how he went to join like a weightlifting team so that he could obviously get stronger. And during this one visit, there was an Olympic coach who came into the building. And so he introduced himself and he began talking to him about the process of improvement and getting better. And so he asked him a very key question. And he said, what is the difference between the best athletes and everyone else? And he said, what do the really successful people do that most people don't? Now, he mentioned things that you might hear, such as genetics, luck, talent, all the things that people on the outside may feel contribute to making a successful athlete. But then the coach mentioned something that really stood out to me. He said at some point it comes down to who can handle the boredom of training every day, doing the same lifts over and over again. Again, he said outside of genetics, luck, and talent, all those other things, what makes the best athletes, these Olympic athletes, different from just any other athlete that's training is their ability to stick to their routine of training, even in the boredom, and they are consistent with it no matter what. They're not relying on their feelings. On their bad days, they go to the gym. On their good days, they still show up with the same amount of effort or more. And I really believe that even outside of athletics, that is the key to being consistent. It is mastering the mundane of boredom. There are going to be so many things, especially that God calls us to do, where we start them and they're going to be very exciting. It's a new thing. But then there's going to be some moments where we have gotten to a point where we understand how to do those things and we still have to be consistent. It's not the time for us to abandon what it is that God has called us to do just because we're no longer interested in the thing anymore. The best athletes know that 1 week in the gym is not going to make them better than anyone else. It's showing up early, being the last one to leave. It's being consistent when everyone else is getting ready to give up. It's being disciplined and being able to push yourself to say, you know what, I may not be excited as I was when I first started, but I know that consistency will always produce results. So even in this moment, I want you to take a look at your own life and ask yourself, man, I wonder what would have happened if I just stuck with that thing a little bit longer. I wonder what would have happened if I didn't give up on my YouTube channel after I posted one video and no one watched. I wonder what would have happened if I would have continued to market my new coaching program that God told me to do instead of getting disappointed when I sent out an email and no one responded. I wonder what it would have happened if I would have just stuck with that idea instead of switching to something else just because I met a little bit of resistance or I got disappointed. I wonder what would have happened if I would have just persevered. These are the questions that linger in the back of our mind when we abandon something too quickly. We're all guilty of this, but how many times has God given you an idea and you went to try to move forward with that thing? Maybe you tried to start it or launch it. And then because you didn't get any immediate results, you either got upset with God and you complained and you said, this isn't working. Why isn't this working? You said you would bless the works of my hands and I don't see any fruit from this. I've been doing this for a year and I don't see any results. And so now we're frustrated and we're disappointed with God and we feel like we need to take things into our own hands instead of just trusting the process and realizing that yes, God will bless the works of our hands, but that doesn't mean that we won't meet any resistance along the way or that we're suddenly guaranteed overnight success just because we were obedient. And that is a humbling revelation to come through, to know that even when God calls you to start a thing, that does not mean that overnight you're going to see a harvest. God works in seeds, and each thing that we do, each time we are obedient, we have seeds that are planted. And I talked to you guys about the revelation about the bamboo and how over a 3-year period, the bamboo doesn't really have a lot of growth, but after that 3-year period, it experiences rapid growth in just 60 days. And that is what we see the fruit of these huge bamboo trees. But there was a time span where there was no growth. All of the action was happening underground. And we, as the consumers cannot see that. And that is exactly how a lot of things work in our lives, where the seeds that we are planting today, we may not necessarily reap tomorrow, but that doesn't mean that there isn't things being built underground or for us believers in the realm of the spirit. Every seed that you produce will produce a harvest. The in between that is just the amount of time that God has allotted. Sometimes it's not that the idea was wrong or your strategy was wrong. It's just that you gave up too soon. And don't get me wrong, there are moments where we all get discouraged and we get frustrated because we look around and we see all these people that look like overnight successes. We see these people that seem like they blow up overnight, but in reality, there was so much behind the scenes that we didn't even realize was going on. Another book that I was reading, it was Auntie Tab. Y'all know Tabitha Brown. I was reading her book and she talked about how it looked like she had blown up overnight. She had went viral, but really she had been acting for over 25 years. And every time she was showing up to unpaid gigs, she was showing up to gigs that were a lot smaller. She was showing up sometimes and there was even no audience. But for 25 years, she consistently showed up. And now we're seeing the harvest of all those seeds that she planted over 25 years ago. We're so busy comparing our lives to somebody's 5-minute highlight reel when we have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. We have to push through and be consistent so that we can receive the promise that God has made for us and we can receive this harvest. It's like as soon as we experience the slightest dip in motivation, we begin seeking new strategy, even if the old one was working. Let that settle in. Sometimes it's not that your strategy is wrong. It's just that you have to persevere. Perseverance and consistency is so powerful that the average athlete can outwork even the most naturally talented one and see better results. Have you noticed sometimes it's not always the most naturally gifted person that's at the top. It's the person with the strongest work ethic, the person that sets his eyes on a target and does not relent until that target is reached. And that is the place that I believe that God is trying to shift us to, where we will lock eyes with the vision that he has given us and we will execute and we will be consistent even in the face of resistance. If you're a believer and God has called you to do something, you better believe that it comes with resistance. There is nowhere in the Bible where God promised his people something and they did not meet resistance. Now we have the victory over this resistance because we know that God has already won the battle. But that does not mean that he will eliminate the trials and the resistance that we will meet, because those are the things that produce character in us. So we have to stop judging our seasons of resistance and opposition as though they are punishment, when it's really just positioning for us to be equipped with what it is that God needs us to have overall in order so that we can have this long endurance, so that we can obtain the promise, so that we can see the fruit of all of our hard work. As we just come to a close, I want to share with you another quote from the book Atomic Habits that really has just shifted my perspective and challenged me to, again, be consistent and push past these moments of boredom. And it says, we all have goals that we would like to fulfill, but it doesn't matter what you are trying to become better at if you only do the work when it's convenient or exciting. Then you'll never be consistent enough to achieve remarkable results. So again, that means that we have to stop complaining. We have to stop feeling like something is wrong just because we're not seeing immediate fruit or overnight success. Sometimes it's not anything wrong. You just need to persevere. And sometimes you just need a push. And that's why I really love the push challenge. We've actually already started if you're listening to this, but you can still click the link in the show notes to sign up for the next one. But the push challenge is all about getting you out of those stuck places, whether you're stuck because you've been bored or you've been discouraged or you've been procrastinating or you've been just confused about how to move forward. It's all about moving from that place to a place of execution. And we do that by blocking out these distractions. And I really helped you to walk through doing the actual work. We're no longer focused on doing the little things that aren't producing fruit, but I'm moving you to a place where you are actually going to start making progress on the God projects that he's called you to do. So again, if you want to join our next push challenge, it's completely free. You can click the link in the show notes, but don't wait until the next challenge to start executing. Pick back up what you put down and get focused. It's February, it's a new month, and you don't even have to wait to the top of the new month whenever you're listening to this episode to get started. God is saying to pick it back up. It is whatever you laid down, whether it's a new business, whether it's a YouTube channel, whether you were creating content, whether you were launching a journal, whatever you were doing, pick it back up and get focused again. So this wraps up another episode of the Organize My Thoughts podcast. If you found this episode helpful, text the link to a friend, and I will talk to you guys on the next one.